Good morning. Welcome to First Church Unitarian here in Littleton, Massachusetts. My name is Lara Hoke, pronouns she, her, and I'm so happy and lucky to be the minister serving this wonderful congregation. If you are here with us this morning for the first time, whether in the sanctuary or with us online, we're so glad that you found us and joined us this morning. And we are very happy to get to know you better. We hope that we'll get the chance to do that. But for those of you who have come back for the second or third week or who've been coming here for decades, we cherish your presence as well, and thank you for being here. We welcome the sounds of children and babies, so don't worry about that. We're happy to have them with us as well, and we all make noise from time to time. Last week, we noted the start of the Muslim holiday of Ramadan, holy month of Ramadan. And this week, starting with Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, begins the Christian season of Lent. So I hope there's a blessed Lent for those who observe it. And if you ever need some special pastoral care, you could always reach out to me or to one of our wonderful lay pastoral ministers. Today's lay pastoral minister is Patty Sardella, and our other lay pastoral ministers are David Butts, Ann Donald, Jan Dustin, and Linda Kaler. And with that, I will turn it over to Mary for Community Matters.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to those in the sanctuary and to everyone joining us online. I join Reverend Lara in welcoming you to Stewardship Sunday here at First Church Unitarian. Again, my name is Mary Giurleo. I'm a member of the Standing Committee, and I use she, her pronouns. So today is the culmination of our Happy Together Stewardship campaign. So I would love to encourage everyone, including new visitors, to join us for a taco luncheon downstairs after the service. We've got some really fun things planned, so we really hope you'll come down. There's no regular coffee hour, just our luncheon. And I also wanted to offer a very special thanks to our stewardship team, Peter Urslin, Jim Nearing, and Cindy Highland. Yeah, this is a subcommittee of the Standing Committee. So these folks were already doing a lot of work, and they stepped up to plan a really joyful, fun stewardship campaign, and it's sort of a tough time for a lot of us, and I really appreciate the way they undertook it with so much joy and love. They really kept the fun in fundraising. So I know they had a lot of helpers, Mike Pillman, Emma, Chris Urslin, and many others, so thank you to the helpers as well. So after we enjoy our lovely lunch, let's do our part and get our pledges in by tonight. Because in order to move on to the next thing, we have to have our pledges. The most fun activity of the year, budgeting. Just kidding. Fundraising is way more fun than budgeting, but we need a budget, so we need your pledges. If you have any questions about how much you pledged last year or what a 3 or 5 or 10% increase might look like, please talk to Debbie Eston, our wonderful assistant treasurer, and she can help you with that. Other than that, please check Community Matters for other upcoming activities. Silence your cell phones and watches, and welcome to our service.
The words of Tanaya Winder. Wake up, greet the sun, and pray. Burn cedar, sweet grass, sage, sacred herbs to honor the lives we've been given. For we have been gifted these ways since the beginning of time. Remember when you step into the arena of your life. Think about those who stand beside you, next to, and with you. Your ancestors are always in your corner, along with your people. When we enter this world, we are born hungry. Our spirits long for us to live out our traditions that have been passed down for generations. Prayer, ceremony, dance, language, our ways of being. Never forget, for you were put on this earth for a reason. Honor your ancestors. Be a good relative. Let us worship. I'd like to invite Isabel to come up and light our chalice this morning. And as Isabel lights our chalice, please join me in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our opening hymn this morning, as last week, is Around. It's in the Teal hymnal at 1009, Meditation on Breathing. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit.
I'll see. Can you hear me? Yes. Awesome. I know you, wise guy. Good morning. And I'm sure everyone's a little tired, but here we are. Today's story is called Aisha and the Ancestors, a birthday party for Great Granny. It's written by Nicole E. Walters and illustrated by Stephen Luna. And so what we open with is an altar. Today is Great Granny's birthday. Today we celebrate with family, friends, and music, and Great Granny's favorite cake. Pound cake. Yummy. Daddy fried Great Granny's famous chicken. Great Granny boiled her greens. Our house smells so delicious, just like all her favorite things. My brother Troy is the DJ. He plays Great Granny's favorite songs. Uncle Ronnie dances with his cane as we clap and sing along. You go. Go, Uncle Ronnie. We sit around the table, and everyone takes turns to say something sweet about Great Granny, even though now she is gone. My grandma lights a white candle. My great-grandy says a prayer. Aunt Tasha tells us stories about Great Granny when she was still here. And these are all the stories of Great Granny that they shared. My Great Granny was amazing. Today's Ganny's birthday. I keep saying Granny, sorry. And though we celebrate, Dad says it's okay to cry and be sad that she's away. Your great Ganny is an ancestor now, Aisha, and she's looking out for you. Everywhere that you go, baby girl, her love is right there too. Great Ganny is with her loved ones, ancestors from long ago, her mother, her father, her sister and brother, and more family than we know. There's a long line of people all the way back. Our ancestors love and guide us. They help us to succeed, and every time we remember them, we bless their memory. Dad says I look like Great Ganny. It's the sparkle in your eyes. When you smile, I see her smile, and I know that she's nearby. Today was Great Ganny's birthday. We sure did celebrate. I think Great Ganny would be so happy that we gathered on her day. Happy birthday, Great Ganny. And there's all her ancestors waiting for her. Thank you.
Marge.
This congregation is self-supporting. We rely on the generosity of our members and friends for our ministries. Many share generously their time and talent for the ministries of FCU. Now, if you are able, we ask that you share some of your treasure to support our ministries. As Jonathan Mayberry wrote in Dust and Decay, generosity could be as contagious as the zombie plague as long as enough people were willing to be carriers. For those in the sanctuary, please put any cash or checks into the plates as they come around. For virtual participants, you can go to our website, fculittle.org, and look for the yellow donate button in the upper right. There you will see details for how to donate online if you wish. You could also send a check to the church through the mail if you wish, to the attention of the assistant treasurer. Thank you for your generosity. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation. Please join me in the words of our community response. May we be transformed by our giving, and may the world be transformed by our gifts.
Many weeks, this congregation has a special time that we call the Candles of Caring. This is an opportunity to share those joys or concerns or sorrows that are dearest to you with this gathered beloved community. If you're here in the sanctuary and wish to share, we ask that you come to the microphone if you're able and line up along the sides if you are able. And please say your name and briefly let us know how we might direct our thoughts, prayers, and healing wishes. We can also bring a microphone to you where you sit if you wish. And for those of you who are with us on Zoom, if you wish to share, please raise the hand in the reactions area and we will call on you in turn. Are there any candles of caring this morning? Would anyone else in the sanctuary like the microphone? Okay. Are there any candles from Zoom? No, okay. Then I'd like to ask Roger to light our last candle to represent all those joys, concerns, and sorrows that are with us this morning, but that remain unspoken. Please join with me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Once again, we have come together in love and trust, sharing those cares dearest to us with this gathered, beloved community. Let us hold in our thoughts and our prayers those joys, concerns, and sorrows that were spoken aloud, as well as those that remain unspoken, as we share together in a time of sacred silence. Amen, and blessed be. As part of our stewardship season, we now have to show you a stewardship video, and thank you to everyone who submitted videos and pictures from the recent times, and thanks to Mike Pillman for putting it together. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. Electric word life, and that means forever, and that's a mighty long time. So when you call up that shrink in Beverly Hills, you know the one, doctor, everything's gonna be all right. Instead of asking him how much time you have left, ask him how much of your mind, babe.
There's Bob skiing here at the top of Bear Peak at Attitash. He's having a great day, a men's retreat.
We are at the fair, at the yard sale, the famous yard sale. People come from far and wide.
FCU. Oh, yes, we do. We love you, FCU, and we are true.
Thanks again, and I think we're going to be able to see the longer uncut version on our YouTube channel later, as I understand it, so that'll be fun too. All right. So Jack, if you could show the next slide. Yeah. This is my mother's mother's mother, my great-grandmother. This is the only photo of her that exists. Her name was Cora May. She was born Cora May Gammon, and after marriage, she was Cora May Brasher. She's a bit of an enigma. We don't know much about her. What we have found through various records are her birth and death dates and locations. She was born November 23rd, 1873, in Henry, Tennessee. We know her parents' names now from her death certificate, but nothing else about them. We can't really get much further back than that. Cora May's mother, my great-great-grandmother's maiden name, was Taylor, and she was also born in Henry, Tennessee. I just learned this past week. I hadn't known that Cora May had a younger sister, Mary Gertrude Gammon. And next slide. You can see Mary Gertrude, the sister, to the right of Cora May, and then a picture of Mary Gertrude when she was older. So there are at least 2 photos, I don't know how many, of Mary Gertrude. Mary Gertrude Gammon was raised in Tennessee and became Mary Gertrude Abbott when she got married, and then she and her husband moved to Oklahoma. For several years, I found they lived on a Choctaw Nation reservation in Oklahoma, which I'm now quite curious about, of course. But back to my great-grandmother, Cora May. My mother has no memory of Cora May and never got to meet her. In fact, my mother was in utero in the womb when Cora May died, so she just missed meeting her. The most dramatic thing we know about Cora May is how she died. And it's right there on her death certificate, and you can show the next slide. It says, immediate cause of death, threw self in well head first, drowned or strangled at death. And then, in quotation marks, it says suicide. And this was known to my mother when she was growing up. It wasn't a family secret. The only other things my mother heard about Cora May, she heard from her oldest sister, my Aunt Mary, who did get to know her a little bit. And Cora May apparently taught Aunt Mary about proper hygiene. And apparently Aunt Mary said she used to take change from Cora May's purse, and she's sure that Cora May knew that, but she never said anything about it. And Aunt Mary loved Cora May very much, and Aunt Mary wasn't one to say kind things about someone unless she really meant it. And everyone loved Cora May's husband, J.M. Brasher, too. And he was very brokenhearted at her death, as was my grandmother, Granny Mildred. Another thing you can learn from Cora May's death certificate, it says that her industry or business was housework, which isn't surprising, but it also says under usual occupation, disable 2 years. What does that mean? Was she disabled for 2 years prior to her death? Was she in physical pain? Did that contribute to her dying by suicide? I don't know. Next slide. I can see my family, my mother's side, and Cora May, some of the facial features, the interest in hygiene and cleanliness. My mother got that. Skipped a generation with me, I think. The casual, generous attitude about money, We mostly have that. And unfortunately, depression is common on that side of the family as well. And I know of several attempts of or deaths by suicide on that side. And Cora May lived to be 67, which is actually not an uncommon age of death on that side. My mother's 3 sisters, including Aunt Mary, all died in their late 60s, though not by suicide. My mother, as you know, is happily still with us at 83, and I believe with us on Zoom right now. Hi, Mom. It feels good to remember Cora May, what I know about her, and thank you for letting me share her with you. It feels good to honor her life and that she lived. It feels good to put the one and only picture of her that exists on the internet and YouTube today for posterity. Why do we care about our ancestors? Ones, in many cases, we never even met. Of course, it's true that we wouldn't exist without the ones that are in our direct bloodlines. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Cora May, among many, many, many others. Lately, I've been curious about ancestor veneration. Tomas David Barrett and James Carney, who are both in the Department of Experimental Psychology at Oxford, note that the social phenomenon of ancestor veneration appears in some form in every single human culture documented to date. They believe that ancestor veneration might have served a role in human evolution in leading to group coordination and group cohesion. In some cultures and places as far-flung as Europe, Asia, and Africa, ancestor veneration is meant to ensure that the ancestors are well, even after death, and that the ancestors will have a positive feeling or disposition toward those still living. Sometimes the living ask for favors or help or guidance. Many Native American cultures do this as well and often view the ancestors as spirit guides that are nearby in a meaningful way. Sometimes across these many cultures around the world, the ancestors are viewed as intermediaries between the living and God or gods, sort of like saints in the Roman Catholic tradition. In the present-day United States, of course, it's also common to place things by someone's gravesite, decorations, flowers, a flag for Memorial Day, or some object that reminds you of that person in particular. In the Jewish tradition, it's common to put a pebble or small stone on the gravestone of a loved one. It's a way to show that you still remember, still care about that deceased person, your ancestor. I often will hear African Americans in my circles talking about the ancestors, drawing strength from the ancestors, feeling them as a spiritual presence in their lives. Sometimes they're talking about their own bloodline, but other times they're talking about the ancestors in a much more general sense, generally drawing strength and spiritual support from those who came to this country as enslaved people and those who descended from those enslaved people, which makes sense to me. One had to be incredibly strong in body, mind, and spirit to survive being enslaved and even managing to produce offspring and raise them while enslaved, and everything else that was so difficult even after the time of slavery. It's an amazing legacy to draw on, of course. James Lowen, late American sociologist and historian, best known for his 1995 book, Lies My Teacher Told Me, describes 3 different categories of humans found in many African societies. And the 3 categories are: first, those who are still living; second, the Sasha; and third, the Zamani. The Sasha are the living dead. They are those who died relatively recently, and their lives overlapped with people who are still alive. And the Sasha, as Lowen puts it, are not wholly dead, for they still live in the memories of the living, who can call them to mind, create their likeness in art, and bring them to life in anecdote. But as he explains, when the last person to know an ancestor dies, that ancestor leaves the Sasha for the Zamani, the dead. The Zamani are a kind of generalized ancestor, revered or venerated in the generalized ancestor sense. The Zamani can be recalled by name, but they are not remembered in a living memory sort of way. And these categories intrigue me as I think about my great-grandmother, Cora May. She's teetering somewhere between Sasha and Zamani by my reckoning, though closer to Zamani. She's living on in one photo and a couple of secondhand memories. But I think of her surprisingly often for someone I never met. Perhaps it's because, as author Liam Callanan writes, we're all ghosts. We all carry inside us people who came before us. I feel like I'm carrying Cora May inside me in some way. She's a reminder of all those who came before me and whatever struggles they might have had. She's a reminder to me of how lucky I am to be here and how precious life is and how fragile. Yet Cora May, like the vast majority of my ancestors, could never have imagined me or my life. Her daughter, my Granny Mildred, lived to see much of my life, but just one generation further back, and it's all mystery. I would be a mystery to Cora May in many ways, and in many ways, she's a mystery to me. It's strange how we're connected so firmly to our blood ancestors, but very faintly, too, all at once. I guess that's a part of the mystique. But there are other ancestors we all have as well, the ancestors not of blood, but of other sorts of identity and passions. As legendary physicist and Nobel laureate Erwin Schrödinger put it, no self is of itself alone. A self has a long chain of intellectual ancestors. We all stand on the shoulders of giants. We wouldn't have any of this without those who came before us. Each of us can have chosen ancestry, just as some of us have chosen family. I think of many Unitarian and Universalist forebears as my ancestors in this chosen sense. I think of many LGBTQ activists from history as my chosen ancestors. They're with me in spirit in some sense when I need them. I don't think of them as intercessors with the divine. In my own theology, no one needs an intercessor or an intermediary with the divine. In any case, we all have full and equal access to the divine as we understand that. But we can all use a little extra strength from time to time. Lately, I've been calling on some chosen ancestors who so bravely fought the Nazis and fascism in Europe in the 30s and 40s, including those who worked through the Unitarian Service Committee, now the UU Service Committee. When I pointed out a couple of weeks ago in my stewardship sermon that this congregation, First Church Unitarian, has been around for 311 years, one of you noted in a conversation afterwards that this gave you hope, that we could think about all the generations that were here before us at FCU and all that they lived through and all that they got through. They got through the American Revolution right here in their backyard. They got through the Unitarian controversy of the 1830s and 1840s that resulted in the schism into Unitarians and Trinitarian Congregationalists. But here we still stand, and the Trinitarian Congregationalists still stand too, just around the corner, which is wonderful because they're wonderful too. They, here at FCU, our FCU ancestors got through the American Civil War. They survived the 1918 flu, sometimes called the Spanish flu. They got through 2 world wars, the controversies of the Korean War, and even more so, the Vietnam War. They got through the tumultuous 60s. Who knows how many controversies they survived here within the walls of the church as well as in the culture beyond it. And think of all the changes in technology the congregation has survived. The extra newly built in the 1960s RE wing of the building stands where horse sheds once stood, after all. Someday, people will remember that we made it through COVID-19 and that we made the leap into live streaming services and more. And I pray that we will be remembered as having fought the good fight against fascism as well. And I often think of our own Sasha from FCU, those recently lost, and our Zamani as well, with deep gratitude for handing this down. Do you have ancestors that you feel connected to, whether you met them or not? Do you have chosen ancestors that you call on for strength or inspiration? If not, you could. This coming week, why not pick a few ancestors? Choose the ones you wish. Blanket yourself with their company. Keep them in your back pocket for when you need a boost. One more interesting thing to remember about the ancestors, and that is that we all have a common ancestor who lived just a few thousand years ago, according to researchers. According to Steve Olson, whose book Mapping Human History traces Homo sapiens back to our origin in Africa more than 100,000 years ago, he says, it's a mathematical certainty that that person existed, that common ancestor. According to an article I read recently, that ancestor likely lived somewhere in East Asia and probably did, quote, nothing more remarkable than be born, live, have children, and die. Yet this was the ancestor of every person now living on Earth, the last person in history whose family tree branches out to touch all 8 billion people on the planet today. And that means, the article goes on, that everybody on Earth descends from somebody who was around as recently as the reign of King Tut, maybe even during the golden age of ancient Greece. Possibly, there's even a chance that our last shared ancestor lived at the time of Jesus. It could even be that recent. Which is kind of wild, isn't it? How closely related we all are, how very much alike we all are, and just how easy it is to forget that reality. So let's keep our chosen ancestors in our thoughts and let them inspire us. Let's keep the reality of our common ancestry in our hearts and let that soften us when necessary. And let's do our best to be good ancestors and make our descendants proud. Let's live the kind of lives that might make someone include us as a chosen ancestor one day. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing song is from the Teal hymnal, number 1051, We Are, and the words are also on the screens. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. For our closing words, it's our tradition, if you're comfortable with it, to hold hands with the neighbor next to you, or touch feet or elbows, whatever works for you. Or simply hold up your hands if you're able and feel the energy between us and those who are with us online as well. We are the breath, the prayers, the dreams of our ancestors. We come from remarkable people who led ordinary lives, but remarkable too. We must remember the sacrifices made, the gifts that they gave us, the struggles they faced, and if we can, call on that courage to inspire us. May we go on to be good relatives and good ancestors worthy of veneration ourselves. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Please be seated.
Have truncated coffee hour on presumably they're promising to.
It's only right.
please join us downstairs for the stewardship lunch, and please be seated first before we begin serving ourselves. See you down there.